Carrie Harrison with you, and I am coming to you live from Institut Montana, Switzerland. It is a private school that has a special summer camp where we do something extraordinary. We live stream radio and TV from the foothills of the Alps. And coming up in just a second, a couple of our star students. One is Petra, she's 13 from Croatia. The other being Jamal, he's 12 from Latvia, are going to interview a Hollywood star, Jason Stuart, who's been in almost 300 different movies and TV shows. And we're going to find out what it means to be in the business of Hollywood, to be resilient, to bounce back under the pressures of living in Hollywood through the eyes of two young people. And that's coming up next.
This is Radio M, Switzerland.
All right. Welcome, Jason Stuart. My name is Jamal. I'm from Latvia, and I'm 12 years old, and this is Petra.
Hi, my name is Petra. I'm 13 years old and I'm from Croatia. And again, welcome, Jason.
Yeah. Welcome, Jason. So, I think Petra would like to start the first question.
Okay, yeah. So you've had a long and diverse career. What first drew you to acting, and when did you know it was what you were meant to do?
Here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. So I always answer the question this way. So a very famous actress and singer named Barbra Streisand was doing an interview, and somebody had asked her, a friend of hers said, "Hey, Barbara, would you please meet my niece? She wants to be an actress." And Barbara said, "Well, of course I would." And they met, and the young girl says to Barbara, "Barbara, do you think I should be an actress?" And Barbara says, "No." And she thinks to herself, well, why do you say that? Because you don't have to need to be actress. You have to want it. You have to want it more than anything. It's something that you need to have that wouldn't be a choice. It's something that you always were. When I was a kid, I was always an actor. I never chose to be it. I was one.
Wow. Well, Jason, your journey in the entertainment industry is truly remarkable. Can you share us a defining moment that shaped your career path?
I would say one of the first things was when I was in my 20s, I had been asked to be on the television show Star Search. They had seen me at a nightclub, and I was put on the show just like that. It was just amazing. It was an amazing experience. And I went on the show, and I had won the first episode. I was completely shocked. I looked very different in those days. I had lots of hair standing straight up. I wore a purple lame jacket with zebra pants, and I danced in a circle because I didn't want anybody to know I was gay. It was crazy. And in the second episode I did, that's what you would do. You would go to the next episode. I did. And I was up against Martin Lawrence from Bad Boys, and I actually lost to him. And then I stamped my foot off and I walked off the show. Now, at the time, it was very funny. But years later, as you watch this on YouTube, it's not funny to anybody at all. They thought, oh, what a terrible sport this guy was. But at the time, I thought I was very funny. Another one would be around 7 or 8 years ago, I had these agents who were in New Orleans, which was in the middle of the country, not in Hollywood. And they had gotten me an audition for a role in a film called The Birth of a Nation. And I was to play a white heterosexual Christian plantation owner in 1831. Now, I was known mostly for playing funny parts. So to get that audition was an amazing feat. And I was just so excited to be able to audition for this. But then I looked at the part and I thought, oh my God, this is something I've never done before. Are they going to actually buy me? Well, I'll just do my best. I did my best. I put it on tape. They wanted me to get it to them. Let's see, I think it was noon, Los Angeles time. And then, of course, in Los Angeles, it was 2 hours earlier, and I had been doing a nightclub gig the night before. So I got up very early. I called an assistant of mine to come in and help me. I put the whole part on tape. I was done by 11:20, and I had gotten it to my agent by 11:30. And then I just forgot about it. And then a couple days later, I get a message that says, hey, they want you to come to New Orleans and meet the director, star, and producer and writer of the film, which was all one person, Nate Parker. And I went, oh my God. So I got a frequent flyer. I rented a terrible little car. I went to stay in a hotel that was just very, very inexpensive. I paid my own way to get there. And I was in the hotel. You saw some woman who was pregnant sitting at the pool smoking. And I said, oh my God, I have to get out of here. And I got in the car. I drove a half hour out of Savannah, Georgia, where I was staying. I went in the parking lot and I was rehearsing over and over and over again my part. I got there 3 hours early. And some man comes over to me and he says, I know who you are. And I thought, I have a fan in the middle of a parking lot, a half hour out of Savannah, Georgia. It was Nate Parker. And he looked at me and he said something, and he was so handsome and he had so much charisma and so much sensitivity that I looked at him and I thought, okay, the pressure's off. I've met him. And I met him, and I'm going to be okay. And then I actually went into the audition room. I had the accent down. I talk like this. I said, it's hard times for small farmers like you and myself. Breaking even's hard enough, but getting ahead's impossible. Now to save some, I cut them back to a meal a day per head. Now I did this whole part. He says, do it again. Can you be a little funnier? I did the whole audition all over again. I put a sense of humor to it. He said, that was terrific. Thank you very much. I left and I thought I'd never get the part. I thought they're never going to cast me as a plantation owner. It's never going to happen. I got home the next day. I was exhausted. I picked up the phone. My agent called me and she says, hi, how are you? I said, well, I'm fine. She says, well, your day's about to get about to get a lot better. I said, why? She said, you got the part. And I just burst into tears. And doing that part, playing that plantation owner in that film completely changed my career. It changed me and it changed the way I felt about myself as an actor. And it created the character roles that I really wanted to play. And so this is about 8 years ago. So it took an incredible amount of time to get into a big movie that people loved, that was successful financially and also successful critically. And also as an artist, when I did the film, it was an incredible experience artistically. It gave me a great bit of confidence because I came to the part and I stayed in character almost the whole time because I wanted to make sure that when the camera rolled and they said action, I was in character rather than coming up in the character. And then I spent the next year promoting the film, going to film festivals, Sundance, TIFF in Canada, all sorts, Colorado, all sorts of film festivals. And I remember one thing that I learned the most is when I was on a red carpet, the this little press gal, she was very young, blonde lady. She said, how do you feel about this? What's your opinion about playing a plantation owner in this film and working with all these Black people and sharing their experience? I said, this is what I do. Is I take off my shoes, I put on the shoes of my Black brothers and sisters, and then I shut up and I listen. And I thought it was really important that I don't have an opinion about this. It's not about me, because what they say, what they feel, that's the truth. And
Thank you, Jason. That's really impressive.
Mhm.
I'll start with my third question now. What has been one of the most challenging roles of your career so far, and why?
Oh, wow, there's so many. That's a hard one. Challenging roles. Well, I did a remake of The Pit and the Pendulum, which was a horror film starring, the original starring an old Hollywood actor named Vincent Price. And I played the father who's a murderer. And the whole part was written sort of like in poetry. And I didn't know what to do. And I had gotten this part because I saw an ad in the Variety that they were going to take older movies and do remakes of them in this company. So I called the director and he knew me And I said, look, I'd love to meet with you about these films. He said, all right, I'll meet with you. And he says to you, do you want to play this part? You have to be really ugly and unattractive in this. I said, I have no problem with that. And then I looked over the scene. And I thought, how am I going to play this part? And then I said, oh my God, he's British. That's how I'll do it. So I talk like this. And I said, tick tock, back and forth. It swings. And then I just put myself into this place. And when I went in for the costume test, I said to the director, hey, I'm going to play this part as a Brit. And he said, what? And he looked at me like I was completely insane. I said, let me do it for you. And then I did my first speech for him. And he went, oh my God, that's perfect. So it's about taking risks. And I've always done that.
Wow. What do you think was back to the Birth of a Nation? What do you think was the hardest part playing as a white slave owner?
It really wasn't hard. It really was very, very joyful. It was able to use a lot of the tools that I had as an actor that I had done in class, in acting class, and studied for so many years. And a lot of people say that to me all the time. Was it hard to play someone so outside yourself? And for me, that's easier. Playing myself, that's a little harder sometimes. Trying to figure out who I am in accordance with all these parts that I played. Where do I fit in? And I guess what I had to do, because I had to say the N-word a lot, and I'd never said the N-word aloud, never I don't think in my life. So I remember I was in the hotel and I was rehearsing the N-word over and over and over. And then there was a knock at the door, and it was the housekeeper. She said, what's going on? I hear voices. I said, no, it's nobody. It's just Trump.
Wow, that's really interesting and very funny. I'll continue with my first question. You're one of the first openly gay actors in Hollywood. How has the industry changed since you came out?
Well, I'll put it to you this way. Last year, I did a TV special with a lot of comedians. It was a group special called Laugh Proud, produced by Quentin Lee. And most of the comedians were younger than me, and they were all gay, bi, lesbian, trans, liquid, fluid, in a box, on a shelf. They were all completely different. And what I noticed about them the most is they were completely unapologetic about who they were. So I really learned so much about how much things have changed and how when I was coming out, it was so different. And if you go into my website, my name, which is jasonstuart.com, in the interview section where the videos are, you can see how the language and the way people ask questions was so different than it is now, and the perspective. And then I realized in this last year, as I've worked on myself just as a human being, as I continue to work on my growth as a person, I notice that treating yourself as an equal in a world that doesn't treat you as an equal is always very difficult for me, because I'm so used to trying to fit into somebody's idea of who I should be. And now what I'm doing is I'm just trying to be myself, just like you guys are. You're just sitting there and you're yourself, and whoever you are is okay. For me, it wasn't. I was always trying to maneuver and to manage it. And now I'm just trying to be myself.
Well, thank you. So comedy plays a significant role in your work.
Yes, it does.
How do you use humor to address serious social issues?
Well, similar to I was just doing Gay Pride. I was headlining Gay Pride in Portland, Oregon. And I got on stage and I said, look, we all have to be together. We are all family now. And we have to be careful because they're trying to take away our rights. And I said, everybody, I want to get married. I want a husband. I want to walk down the aisle. I want family and friends there. I need new kitchen stuff. And I want to say to all the straight people, if you let us marry each other, we'll stop marrying you. So I make a joke out of it. I try to do it in a funny way so people understand that we're just people just like you all. And we just want to have family. We want to have a partner. We want to be able to feed ourselves, have a nice place to live, and take care of my mom.
Thank you so much. You're also a stand-up comedian. How does performing comedy differ from acting on screen or stage?
You mean different from being an actor?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I think they're like cousins and brothers and sisters of each other. It depends. Like I was at Gay Pride, like I just said, in Portland, there were like 1,000 people there. So you're doing a different performance. You're what I call grandstanding. You walk, you say the joke, you walk, you say the joke. Whereas if I'm doing a film or TV show, I can do something this small and I can do something this tiny, and I can just move my eyes and move my, do something with my eyebrows. And I remember there was a movie called Jagged Edge with Glenn Close and Jeff Bridges. And Jeff Bridges played a guy who supposedly had murdered his wife. And Glenn Close played the lawyer. And she said to him, I need to ask you this one question. The screen in the movie theater is gigantic, right? She said, did you kill your wife? And he takes a minute and he goes, no, I didn't.
Wow.
And when he turned his head for just a slight second, and you can't see because I have my glasses on, and I won't take them off because my eyes are so puffy. I have a little eye problem today. Otherwise, I would have my glasses off. And you knew in that little second that he just moved his eyes that he was lying. And I thought, wow. Because if somebody killed somebody, did not kill somebody, they'd say immediately, no, of course I didn't kill somebody. But he didn't. He took a second. He went, no, I didn't. And I knew that when he paused for a second and had to think of how is he going to say it, the way he's going to say it. And that shows the subtlety and the difference between the craft. And I call it almost like head acting, because you have to have the thoughts crossing through your mind and your head.
Wow.
Whereas in stand up in the theater, it's more physical, depending on how big the people are, how big the audience is, rather.
Thank you. So, what advice do you have for aspiring actors who may be facing similar challenges that you overcame in your career?
Well, one thing is fear. I always had a great deal of fear. Just being able to do stuff, being able to learn so many different lines with different kinds of things that were unfamiliar to myself, being comfortable, being emotional in front of people. What I do to overcome that is I come in as the character. I don't say, call me the character's name or anything. I don't have to act crazy about it, but what I'm trying to make myself look better. What I try to do is I try to do relaxation exercises. And the most important thing is to focus on the work at hand. Always focus on the work, not focus on the people. And I remember I was doing a film with Faye Dunaway, who's a big Oscar-winning actress. And I remember she said when we were doing the film, she said, you're in my eye line, you need to move. Now there was a grip, a guy who helps the cameraman. And he was doing something and moving, going like this. And she's doing this emotional scene. I played this talk show host who was ambushing her. And she said, you're in my eye line. And I used to think, oh, that's sort of crazy. And then I realized that the guy moving about like this, like right now, if somebody was going over to you and they were talking to you and talking in your ear, and how would you be able to ask the questions with me right now? Your focus would be pulled to the guy, stop, you would be pulled. So it's very important to have your focus and create that world around you. Like if you're a talk show host, I am creating the world that I am on a show in front of an audience. So I have to use my imagination, have my fourth wall, and know who's there, know where the people are. My cameraman is over there, my AD's over, the audience is here. So when I say things and I'm talking, even though there is no audience, I say, today on the show is Academy Award winning actress Faye Dunaway. And I use my voice. Now, and then when I talk to her, I say, Miss Dunaway, or whatever her character's name. We hear that your son killed your husband. Tell us about that. And I would speak to her specifically to her, and have the same communication that I'm having with you now on Zoom as you pop me in and out.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Looking back, is there a piece of advice you wish you had received earlier in your career?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God, that's a hard one. as I grew up in a family of yelling and screaming and and craziness. And as you can see out here from my actual book, my autobiography, "Shut up, I'm talking." That's the way I grew up in my house. "Shut up, I'm talking." And as the old Lenny Bruce joke goes, I was 5 years old until I didn't know my name wasn't Shut Up. And so I think that I just try very, very hard to have grace, to have kindness, to feel like I'm being valued, to have a connection, and to feel safe. And if I don't have people that like that in my life, and I at all can change that, I don't work with them. If I have a choice. I hope that
Wow.
answered the question. It went out of my head for just a minute. When I picked up my book, I just went nuts.
Wow. Now, looking ahead, what are your aspirations for the future in terms of roles and projects?
I want to work with really talented people that are better than me, so I can lift myself up. And then I want to lift other people up who are younger than me. That's why I'm here today. I want to hold you guys up. I want to give you the self-esteem that I didn't have as a kid because of being a gay kid growing up in a world where I was not liked. My dad was a Holocaust survivor. And if you see the movie The Brutalist that just came out, that's the way my father's life was when he came to this country. And I never forget that's where I come from. And so what I try to do is I try to be of service in my life. That's why I'm up at 6 a.m. in the morning after I've been up all night traveling across the country with a plane that was late, having to take plane, trains, and automobiles to get home. When Harrison calls me on the phone and says, "Hey, there's something to do where I can be of service," I say, "Okay, I'll be there."
Wow, thanks so much. Jason Stuart, you're in business that tells you who you are isn't enough. How do you find self-esteem through that?
Well, that's what I just sort of answered. I think I've done a lot of workshops and gone for different kind of thing, everything from naked dancing to dealing with trauma to being in the woods, all sorts of different kind of workshops. And I also, I guess I also have done a lot of therapy, and I think to learn more about myself. So I give myself different tools, and I work in a program that helps me get to the next place and gives me a structure for my life.
And back to your journey, what inspired you to overcome the obstacles and keep going in your journey?
Well, the love of the work, Jamal. When you love something and you love the work and you love what you're actually doing. I just directed a film that I acted in, co-wrote and co-produced, called Redlining, which is about the idea that different kinds of people need to stay with their own and live in a certain area. So you would take a map and you put a red line around it saying the Black people live here, the gay people live here, the Jews live here, the white people live here. And it's about a Black family and a white family in the 1970s who live on the same property. And when all the parents pass away, who gets the house and why? And it's about generational wealth, which I think is probably one of the most important things in our country. And that's my next film. And so I want to do things where you can sit in the dark, where you, Jamal and Petra, can go to a movie, or turn on the TV, or even look at your phone, which I can't believe that I actually watched an episode of The Gilded Cage, The Gilded Age, rather, on my phone on the airplane coming home. I can't believe that I did that. And then you can watch that and see something in a different way and say, oh my God, there's a different life. There's a different group of people. They're different than me. And just say, and learn about them. And that's why it's so important to know your history, know who came before you, and to honor them, the people that came before you, and say their names. I always say the names of the people that come before me when I'm being interviewed.
Wow, thank you. Now about your family's past. Can you share a bit about your family's background, where they came from, and what kind of people they were?
Well, I just did, Petra. So I I grew up in a family of people. My parents got married very, very young, and they were basically children. So I say to you guys, because you're both so young, how old are you guys both? Petra,
13.
you're 13
I'm
and,
I'm
and Jamal
12.
12. So I say, when you're mad at your parents, because now you're probably at the age where you want to sort of be yourself. And you want to sort of, I say in your 20s, you're figuring out who you are. Your 30s, you're being who you are. Your 40s, you're basically practicing who you are. Your 50s, you just want to lie down. You're just so tired. And then after, when you get older, I'm guessing you just don't care anymore. So you're trying to just become who you are.
Wow. So the diversity.
Oh wait, one more thing. You know what
Mhm.
when it is that you, and I want to tell you, all you kids, and you probably don't realize this, your parents are just people. They're just
Mhm.
people who had you. So they're going to make mistakes. So if they don't rape you or beat you with a tire iron or do something so terrible to you, everything can be forgiven. You have to forgive them. And that doesn't mean you have to say, okay, they're my best friend. Maybe sometimes they're not. Maybe sometimes they're not your best friend. Maybe sometimes you don't connect with them, but you have to forgive them. And if you forgive them, you can set yourself free and know that they're just people like you and me who had children. They're not your parents only, they're human beings.
Wow, that's powerful. So, Jason, I mean, the diversity in your roles is impressive. How do you approach portraying characters that challenge traditional norm?
Well, you mean for me, they're not, I don't know if I do anything that's out of traditional, but I try to first find out what part of me is that character. I just did a horror film where I played this guy who was sort of that creepy guy that lives in the town, and you always think he's the one that murdered everybody. And the character talked like this. And I'd say, hey, Petra, you're a pretty girl. If you need me, I'm always here. So I just sort of got this idea in my head of the way his speech came and then how he would move. I thought, what do I do with my hands? I thought, oh, his hands just hang down. He never really uses his hands much. And I had them dirtying me up because I figured I'm somebody who always used my hands. And if you can see, my hands are very clean and my nails are nice. So I put dirt in them, and I put a little dirt on my face, and they made me look older, and they put circles and stuff under my eyes. Somebody who didn't, somebody like me who doesn't use creams to get my face to look nice. And I just started walking around being him, as I said before. And I just started getting that into me. So I have to start the minute I get into the, makeup chair in the morning, because I'm not an actor who feels like, oh, I'm going to be able to go like that. And all of a sudden I'm able to do the part. So I start while they're setting up the lights, while they're setting up the cameras, and I start becoming that person. How does that I did another film 2 months ago called I Got Next, where I played a basketball coach. I said, how does that guy? He talked, Patrick, get over there, do this, do that. Jamal, what are you doing? Sitting there like an idiot. Move. Let's go. Come on, come on. And I used that voice the whole time. And I had to be the coach to all these young kids. They were in grammar school. They were like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All these kids. So it's so funny because I did that. They thought I was actually a basketball coach. So and they wouldn't stop talking. And the cameraman and the director, they would yell action, and so I had this whistle. So I was in charge of getting the kids to be quiet, and I blow the whistle, and they go, oh, okay. And they got scared, and then they'd be quiet so they could shoot the scenes. So I just try to get into the moment. Every job is different. Some jobs are harder than others, and some are not.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining the live. It was very nice to meet you. And thank you, everyone who joined the live.
Thank you both very much.
And I'm just going to jump in because how amazing are these two students? 12 and 13 from Croatia, from Latvia, and they're interviewing Jason Stuart, and they did a great job. Round of applause from everyone. You can't see the studio audience, but they can see you, Jason Stuart, and they can see you, Petra, and they can see you, Jamal. Carrie Harrison with you. This is Institut Montana in Switzerland, where we are live streaming to you with our two little superstars, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
This is Radio M, Switzerland.